All right, we are back. I was looking at this, wow, 59 already. We're almost to like 60. But anyways, episode 59. So this was actually a pretty big week, at least from an earnings perspective. Our earnings really kicked off. We won't talk about it much, maybe we will, but notables are Tesla and Google this week. But I think we'll talk about self-driving. Self-driving tailwinds. What's happening in self-driving? A lot of things are happening in self-driving, so we'll touch a bit about that. Apple AI or Apple Intelligence, I forget what they call it, what they branded their intelligence, but that's starting to become a major flop, even more so. Talk a little about that. And then, yeah, as per usual, wherever the winds take us is what we'll cover. But anyways, yeah, so that's it. Trying to keep these short and concise now.
Good call on the earnings. You said Tesla on Google this week,
Yep,
and Tesla was a miss, big miss.
big miss.
But I think it was priced in.
See, that's the thing. It was priced in. It was like the worst earnings ever, even way more below than what analysts were expecting, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's priced in."
Well,
This is
I
why
mean,
this is why I can't trade Tesla stock. I just like there's just too many fanatics behind it.
it had to have been right if it went up after the horrible earnings. Basically, it was priced in, and now the big guys are like, okay. I mean, it was up. Let's see, what was it? It was up 27%
Yeah,
to
after
close the
earnings.
week.
Yes, that was crazy for something that missed by like 70% or 70, 80% from what I remember.
So okay, so if you don't think it was price and earnings, it must have been something. Was it the Ford guidance that Elon Musk had given around their commitment to AI robotics as well
Yeah,
as the cheaper car?
it's Elon over-promising what they're going to accomplish. I think it was really revolved around robotaxi, right? How they plan to start testing like June, right, is the Austin test. And then, of course, we'll have our full fleet out by 2026 or some ridiculous promise like that. I
Did
think
they
that's what.
announce San Francisco during that call too, or was that after?
I don't remember. I
Okay,
didn't watch the earnings call, but I didn't hear anything mentioned about San Francisco.
yeah.
Mostly the focus was on Austin.
Well, I think what was also going on is because of that news that came over the weekend, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Hmm.
Probably insiders knew about that coming out too, which also caused it to
Yeah, but
increase a bit.
yeah, but anyways, so yeah, Tesla is no longer a car. It's all going to be about robotaxi and their robots, apparently. I guess is the next growth story that'll probably be talked about from now on, which is, it's still 90% of the revenue is from cars. I feel
Well,
like I
and
made that up, but I feel like
yeah,
that's correct.
and Elon confirmed he's peeling away from Doge,
Yeah,
right?
Doge, yep,
That's another bullish catalyst.
I guess.
But I was telling you earlier, yeah, I was happy with that because I had actually sold a good portion of my Tesla stock
Yep.
right at close because earnings came out and then it kind of dipped a little bit.
Hmm.
Actually, no, it popped a bit and then it was a bit neutral. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, there's no action going on. So I sold it. Then I looked it up and I was like, oh, the actual call is not till 2:30.
yeah,
So then I rebought and that worked out for me. So I positioned it over the last few days, just taking
yeah,
advantage of this pop.
yeah.
But yeah, so Tesla, I mean, same story essentially, but continuing to iterate on it.
Hmm.
Hmm, I guess congrats to Tesla for actually let's get that out. Now let's talk about Google.
Yeah,
I know Google beat earnings.
yeah.
Was it by a lot?
It was pretty. What were some of the headlines? Pristine, I think, is one that stood out. So the earnings were great, but it, got the earnings pop. It kind of started to whiff for most of the day.
Oh,
Tesla
the
was
buyback, $70 billion buyback.
$70 buyback, which is good, I guess. What else?
AI.
AI, yeah. I think Sundar talked about how much usage Gemini was getting, which ended up being a pretty big number. I forget what it was. As you can tell, I didn't really pay much attention to
Yeah,
Google's, ironically, earnings.
yeah.
But
Well,
th
I'm
they did well overall. I think there were some questions about Waymo. Apparently, that's the hot thing. So they did release some numbers that Waymo is now giving 250,000 rides a week at this point. So that's positive. And then, yeah, he said something about Gemini was like 200 something million searches a month, I believe, through Gemini. It's some huge number.
and
Uh,
there's that the Gemini that's integrated into Google search
See, this is where some people were like, Are you not talking about AI overviews?" And I believe he was saying Gemini, like through the Gemini app.
app. Okay.
So, anyways, yeah, so Google did well. Stock just kind of slightly dumped, but still kind of up.
Well, it
I
was
think more,
up to close the week. It was up 8-9%. So
yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
it was, it's just from a, well, I mean, it's hard to say up on the weeks because like of everything's always down because of some random tariff news. Anyways, it's definitely off its high of like 200 bucks. So it was trading around like 165, right? So
yeah. I mean, we could say the same about Tesla.
look at Tesla.
Off its
Is
high of
what,
$400.
400? Yeah.
Come on, Tony. Positivity. Stocks.
Positivity.
Tech stocks are doing good.
Yeah. So this
Okay,
bit,
so
this,
Netflix did great.
yeah, Netflix did
Tesla,
great.
Google.
All-time highs. Tesla not so well. Google well. So we'll find out next week as
Yep.
we'll round out the rest of the Mag 7. I'm anticipating Meta. As you know, that's my favorite Mag 7.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's gonna
and
do good. It's already showing. Well, everything was up this week.
yeah,
Microsoft, Apple.
yeah. But yeah, so there you go. There's our quick earnings recap.
Cool.
All good.
Well, related to those AI stories, particularly with Google and with Tesla, okay. Well, first off, before we get into that, sorry, restart. Related to those AI stories and self-driving specifically, one of the news things that broke out over the weekend, which is also going to cause. Wait, was it over the weekend or was it during the week?
I didn't see this, so it was
Uh,
news to me.
April 25th.
That would be this week.
So related to Tesla and Google as it pertains to AI and self-driving, one of the stories that broke on Friday, which also caused the stock to pop a bit, was that the U.S. government agency, specifically the Department of Transportation, has announced that they're planning to ease some of the safety regulations that are inhibiting Tesla from actually
Mm,
launching its more widespread. And obviously, this is because of Elon's relation with Trump and the
hmm
lobbying. But that's big news for Tesla because now that allows them to deploy their full self driving technology more easily. And so I think out of this, they also said they're going to start testing robots in San Francisco, which is where Waymo primarily operates. And so I think that's good news. And so this is one step on the way of making robotaxis come to life. And then the other news that came out this week was Uber. So Uber is interesting because they've always played in the self-driving taxi. During the COVID times, there's this whole thing of self-driving freight, and Uber was actually testing things in that domain. But they had a crash at one point of one of their self-driving cars, and it was a mess. So they've changed their strategy really to be less about owning the AI technology and more leveraging other companies to, you know, kind of take the brunt of operating the cars while they can power the software.
hmm
And so they're teaming up with VW to launch a number of self-driving minibuses that'll help shuttle people around. They've also been teaming up with other companies.
They're partnered with
In,
Waymo.
yep, with Waymo. And so that's their strategy. Like piggyback on all these other companies versus being that self-driving arm And I think it's a good strategy because it'll allow them to kind of expand with less liability than other companies.
I think this is the one that's interesting, right? Is because Uber at one point before Dara took over was heavily investing in the autonomous driving, right? And then, the strategy shift to only focus on being the platform to service all these other autonomous companies. I think the question now is whether this also came up during Waymo, as Dara gets asked all the time, is like, what's your partnership with Uber going to be like? When does Waymo go off on its own to rely on its own platform? There's a Waymo app where you can book directly if you don't want to go to Uber. And so I feel like this is one where we'll have to see if it actually plays out or not, right? Because once these autonomous companies are able to build enough scale, it's like, would they really want to partner with Uber as kind of like their platform? Tesla's already said no, obviously, that they're not going to partner with Uber, right? Who knows if Waymo or Google changes their mind once they get enough scale. So it'll be interesting to see if the strategy actually does play out. Volkswagen confuses me. It's like they're partnering with Uber. We know they're already partnering with Rivian to develop a lot of their software systems. So I kind of wonder how that plays into all of this too.
Well, I think when you think about accessibility of riders,
Hmm.
I feel, obviously Uber dominates
It's
in
true.
that domain and even drivers, I'd say. So that whole liquidity of driver rider marketplace, Uber like is the leader there. Maybe DoorDash is the leader in terms of food delivery, but like even if Google were to be able to scale, I don't think they'd be able to access as many people with the level of trust
Yeah.
that Google has. And Tesla for sure. Like I think Tesla's gonna have a hard time convincing people to use their robotaxi,
Yeah.
especially with all the Elon haters these days. So that's how I think that plays out for Uber. But no, I mean we'll see. I think it's an interesting one. It's very different than the other companies. I like how these vans look.
Yeah.
They're kind of
Uh, they
they're kind of luxury, but also not.
Yeah, they look similar. Well, I mean, 'cause these are VW buses, but
Mhm.
Google, or not Google, like, well, Google slash Waymo's also launching their V2 vehicles, which are minivan-ish designed, and those look pretty cool.
Let me see. Oh yeah,
Yeah, I actually saw one when I was in SF, but yeah, they look cool. It makes sense. When we talked about the Tesla's version of the taxi, where I was kind of like harping on the design, it doesn't make sense as a passenger vehicle. Right? And then you see Waymo and I guess Uber, they're shifting more towards a van style
yeah.
robotaxi, which I think makes more sense from a passenger delivery perspective. But anyways,
I'm excited. I think I say the next 5 years, this is actually going to be legitimately being used pretty regularly
yeah,
by people. I'm excited. Now let's see how much it's going to be, how expensive it's going to be. Because like even with Ubers, it's like Uber is one of those things where I don't use Uber unless I have to use Uber.
yeah,
But I know a lot of people, especially in the like younger generation, or even
yeah,
those who are live in the city, right? They just
yeah,
a lot of people don't own a car. They
yeah,
just Uber everywhere.
yeah,
But it's just cool seeing it come to life. So
yeah,
exciting stuff.
yeah. Well, we'll see how it plays out in big cities.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I say big cities, what I mean by that is cities where there's a lot of distance between things.
Like where you live.
Yeah, like where I live, right? Like in Texas, it's like you just have to have a car because there's no public transportation. Uber is actually very expensive because like the distances you have to travel to get someplace, it's just a lot. Unlike when I was in San Francisco, a quick Uber like $5 to get to someplace where you're like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I just wonder. Waymo has started testing in Tokyo. They delivered their fleet of 30 vehicles that are going to be running around Tokyo to map data and start training. So that'll actually be pretty cool. But yeah, it has turned out to be a very interesting space, especially if you want to layer on the
Yeah.
AI component of it. Again, we talk about unique data, and real world mapping data is definitely unique. And so, yeah, we'll see who comes out on top.
Well, you mentioned Texas, and so that triggered me to remember this other story that came out from this kind of unknown company. But Aurora Innovation is actually going to start testing their completely driverless semi trucks between Dallas and Houston.
Oh.
So you might see some out there, semi trucks with nobody in them.
Well, that's assuming they have anything to deliver at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be empty. But when I heard this story, I was like, oh my God, I'm already annoyed by big semis that,
Uh,
are blocking the highway or the
right.
road because they need to back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now this thing's going to be going so slow because it's
That's
going to
right.
be super cautious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hopefully it just stays in the right hand lane and that'll be good.
All right. Well, exciting stuff on the autonomous driving, and we'll see. Let's jump to your story next around the Instagram edits.
Oh, yeah. No, this was just a side note, which I thought we should talk about just from a creator point of view. But so if you're a big TikTok user or poster, you're likely using the accompanying app, which is called CapCut. I was looking for something to edit our short videos for the podcast, and CapCut is very popular. I didn't actually realize it was built by ByteDance,
Mm-hmm.
which now makes sense to me. So CapCut is a dedicated video editor that a lot of TikTokers use to edit their videos. Of course, Zuckerberg and team, Instagram just launched their new dedicated video editing app called Edits by Instagram. I just thought I just kind of shout. I haven't fully tested it or tried it out yet. Maybe I will. Apparently, millions of people already downloaded it. If you're into Reels, that's really the target audience for the Reels creators to have a little bit more feature-rich content
Yeah.
creation tools.
Or another Zucking,
Another Zucking, yeah.
and it's probably number one in the US iPhone App Store because he probably makes all the Reels users download it.
Oh yeah, I haven't opened Instagram to see if they've promoted it yet.
It's just throwing me back to the Threads launch, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
we
when
got
they
the most.
opted everybody in automatically
And
is
then it was all like
this.
this news.
Yeah.
It's like Threads hits 2 billion users, the fastest ever in history. Like, yeah, because you forced everyone to freaking
Yeah.
create an account.
Yeah. I try to use Threads, but the thing is I don't know if they consider it a problem or not, but most people just use it as an Instagram. They just post their Instagram photos, right?
Well,
Versus actually having conversations around it, and so that's why I think it's kind of tailed off. But okay, I
yeah.
see no promo for Threads, or not
Is
for
it
Threads, for edits yet.
is
So
this when you're trying to create, when you're trying to
yeah,
upload a video, or is it when you're just reading Rails? Or
no, when I'm trying to create, it doesn't look like it links to it yet.
okay,
All right, we'll see. But
yeah,
anyways, yeah. So Apple App Store, go to edits or look for edits or Instagram edits, and yeah, give it a shot. Why not?
I will give it a try. I'm a fan of these mobile quick editing videos for content. All right, let's hit to the last story now. Staying on the AI train. By the way, edits I'm sure incorporates generative AI in it. I have a friend who works in the Gen AI group in Meta, and I know that's a big part of their mission right now is to double down on AI. But related to AI, who is not doing well in AI? Apple. And between the delays of their Apple Intelligence, between just being incapable of keeping up with OpenAI and Google and others, some news broke out that their AI head, his name is John Gianandra, has lost another project. So previously, in the last few months, the AI head lost Siri as a core project, and then now he's losing a secretive robotics project from his portfolio. So,
Mhm.
some senses, I think he's being demoted, if you will, or perhaps slowly being pushed out. But the last project, the robotics one, has been given to the Apple Vision Pro
Mm-hmm.
head, since
Mm-hmm.
he probably has nothing. He's probably
To
not busy
do.
with anything right now because of their Vision Pro flop. But this is interesting news. It kind of brought me back to the days of the first iPhones,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget what his name was, but he was big into this skeuomorphism, and he slowly got like pushed out because projects were being taken away from him.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy, if all these things are
Yep.
as dramatic as the news and the leaks
Yep.
make them seem to be. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy gets axed.
Yeah, no, this is like the death sign,
Mm-hmm.
right, of somebody slowly getting pushed out because at this level, well, I guess at any level, really, it's like your scope matters, right? And so the less scope you have, the less important you are. It's the easiest way to think of it, especially for anybody not in tech. Maybe outside of tech, it doesn't really work this way, but yeah, in tech, it's like scope is everything. So the less scope you have, the less important you are, and the less attention people pay to you. So this is never good, especially in an emerging hot area, right? To lose it, not really a good sign. So yeah, I agree. I imagine he's on his way out, or he's being gracefully let go to find his next opportunity at this point.
The person I was thinking about was Scott Forstall, and he
Oh,
got axed
forestalled. Yes, I
because
remember.
of
Okay.
Apple Maps.
Yes.
Because Apple Maps was
Yes.
a whole disaster when it launched. Remember?
Right. It was terrible. Yeah. Gen Z doesn't remember, but it was an awful release product from
Yeah.
the first.
And he was basically in charge of their engineering and once or iOS software.
Mhm.
And I remember I remember Apple Maps when it first launched. It would have all these like weird images or terrain, and also it just led you to like nowhere often.
Yeah, the directions were terrible. It was just not a great product. And that's why a lot of people still a lot Gen Z or X, some millennials just don't use Apple Maps because they still remember how bad it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, but anyways, so I guess we'll find out. Overall, I just think like AI stuff at Apple just seems to be in chaos. Like they can't get it right.
yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, we're still waiting, right? Apple Intelligence is still vaporware for the most part. A year in, they're going to hit their next worldwide developer conference. I'm like,
Nothing.
what are they going to do?
Yeah, that's in 2 months.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. But Apple still continues to do well, relatively speaking.
That's because they own your pocket. They own
In your
your
pockets.
work. They own
Yeah,
everything in your life, pretty much.
yeah.
All right. Well,
All
that
right,
was episode 59.
59. A
Going
lot of
strong.
things happening.
Yeah. Sorry we are delayed in getting some of our videos out. That's mostly on me because I've been busy with other projects that are heating up and life. It's summer.
Life in general. Yeah, I know. We're going this summer. I'm like, man, what am I going to do for summer? I don't know. I should do something. We've got all this free time. But anyways, I guess I shouldn't say free time. I have like a lot of non-commitment work time.
Yeah. You have a lot of randomization.
Yeah. I'm still debating if I want to continue this or if I want to get back onto the treadmill. But I'm not really looking forward to getting back on the treadmill. So
Enjoy your summer first.
yeah, I think so.
All right. Talk to you next
All
week,
right.
Tony.
Yeah.